5 minutes about lifelong learning, which is not another New Year's resolution, but it's a really important subject in my opinion, because this is one of my favorites actually. So if you look at my big five, I'm not shooting big animals though. No, my big five are my personal goals in my life. And my big five are independency. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. I want to travel a lot, as much as possible, and see many cultures, many countries. And I have completed 2 different studies, which I like both. Different studies, architecture, engineering, and education. And my last goal would be my doctoral studies, which I will start this year. So that is my New Year thing, of course. And yeah, many people have realized already that nowadays you have to learn all your life to be able to keep up with your job or the development of techniques. And so you have a long-term perspective, and I can only suggest turn that into some kind of hobby, because it's a journey which is interesting and it's very fulfilling also, in my opinion, if you do it in a nice way. And yeah, I want to give an example what I find very inspirational. For example, maybe you know Theo Jansen, that is a Dutch artist, and he creates a life form which is a kind of mechanical engineering that can walk. And he has invested a lot of time developing that walking mechanism and doing the calculations and find the geometry which is really suitable for that. And it's very interesting, and they are fascinating creatures, I think. And his approach has inspired a lot of people. So people were creating bicycles with this walking mechanism, or even like wheelchairs. They can walk on like uneven terrain, for example, which I think is a good development, and it's quite fascinating. And there's one South American architect, I think, and he has published how to create a rabbit family that simulates strand-based, which I think is the most crazy idea I ever saw. He used all the geometrical calculations for that, and it's very elaborate, and it has no commercial value or something. It's just the joy and to prove it's possible, it can be done. So you can create amazing things just by you want to create them, and you have this drive to learn something from it. So that is really, really also the kind of drive that drives me forward. And yeah, for me it was like visualization techniques. I was a 3D Studio Max user when it was really new. And so I found it was absolutely wonderful that I could see buildings before I construct them, that I can give a realistic perspective how something would look like in its environment. And then I discovered more. I discovered, for example, that I can simulate daylight and see light conditions around the building and also inside the building, because now, as environmental impact got more and more important, it's important to see how much daylight use is there in a building, or can I optimize that to reduce energy consumption, for example. And it came from that kind of 3D technology at that time. And now I went into, of course, into building information modeling, which was the logical step further into that. And we used the models to avoid collisions from mechanical and structural engineering. And we can check everything before it's actually happening. We can use the model to render bill of quantities. We can do very precisely cost estimate and everything. But what interests me is more I want to see what kind of environmental impact we will have by using certain materials, by energy consumption of that building. And I combine the BIM model with that calculation software. And I think that is something that will really matter in the future. So I want to avoid like long transport of material. I want to optimize like the supply of material on the construction site. There is a lot of things that we can do, and how much impact do we have when we when we deconstruct the building? You know, from the very first to the very last moment, we have now all the simulation software to see what will happen. And if we see from the previous movie, I said like 40% of our bad environmental impact is actually caused by construction and from our usage of buildings. So I believe this is a very important aspect to change the way we construct, what kind of materials we use, and how we live in buildings. That is an important subject that we need to take care of, and that is, for example, what drives me doing a PhD, even with like 20 years in the industry, and I still think it's worth doing it.